Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another Saturday morning Science of Mind conversation. And I'm just having to mute my mic, and hopefully that's not a harbinger of technical problems to come. It's Mark Gilbert with you. And I see we've got some people dropping in live. I appreciate it. I got two requests for you. I want you to post a comment in your comment field wherever you're watching and say your name and where you're from. And the other thing is if the sound is okay. The last two times, even though I've been doing these programs for a number of years now and really haven't made any technical changes to my system, we've had the last two times I've been with you, we've had issues with the technical sound. You hear my voice, it crackles, it breaks up. And I want to give a shout out to Robert Brzezinski. He and I have been testing this over the last week. We've done some recordings on StreamYard, and hopefully the things are working out okay so that you're able to hear me. But if you're not, I want you to say something in the comment field. Let me know. We have a backup plan for another microphone that I'll switch to. But our primary microphone is working okay. And so I want to thank everybody for joining us today on the Science of Mind Saturday morning conversations. Today we're going to be looking at the notebooks of Ernest Holmes, the notebooks of Ernest Holmes, and that is our topic. And this sort of builds on the one I did about a month ago, and still having sound issues. Thank you, Shay, for saying something. We are immediately going to go to the other microphone and see what happens. So it's all warbly, same as before. Thank you. Okay, Shay, I have switched to another microphone, and I want you to tell me if this is working better. And if it's working, then we're good to go. And if it's not, then we're going to have to plow through like we did last time. So we are on our other microphone now, and everything here says it's working okay. But if you could, Chase, appreciate your feedback. You were the one giving me feedback last time. I was having issues. You could drop a comment in real quickly and just tell me whether you're having any issues with this microphone. It would be wonderful. In any case, I'm going to proceed a little bit. Today's topic is the notebooks of Ernest Holmes. And what do we mean by the notebooks of Ernest Holmes? Well, it all relates to some notes that were kept by Ernest back when he was alive, when he would do his live presentations. They would be, and so sorry, it's the same. Okay. I am not. All righty. Robert, if you're out there, you will come on and join me. I know he's been traveling to a conference. Um, and it's one of these things where it works fine in all the test modes. And then we go live on this Saturday morning thing, and it's going crazy. Um, let's just see. I'm going to try one more thing here. And see if we can get any kind of this is back microphone. All right, we're just going to have to put on it. It's highly disappointing we put into it. It's been working well, for years on this thing, and now all of a sudden it is going wonky. And I guess we're going to have to get with sound with StreamYard and see if we can't figure it out with the technical issue. Anyway, let's plow through this. I apologize for the sound connections, and those of you who are having sound issues, I apologize for that. The notebooks of Ernest Holmes, they were Ernest when he gave talks in the 50s. He would keep some quotes from his talks that were some of the better talks. And so what we're doing today is going through three little books that were published after his death by Willis Kinnear, who was the Science of Mind editor for the Science of Mind magazine. And what he did was he took some of the quotes out of Ernest's notebooks, put them together into three little volumes. The first little volume is called Keys to Wisdom. It's out of print, but you can get the PDF of the quotes from the Science of Mind archives, and I'll put up their web link in just a few minutes. The second book was called The New Horizons, and it's also out of print, but it's also available at the Science of Mind archives. And then finally, the third book was a book called Way to Life, and it's also out of print, and it's currently not available at the archives. But we're looking to see what we can do to bring that out on. And essentially, the book, three little small books like this. There are really volumes that were published, like I said, in Science of Mind by the magazine after Ernest passed, and they basically are small little books just full of quotes. And all we're doing today is running through some of the quotes from Ernest that is I'm going to try going to my secondary mic one more time, and let's see if that makes any difference. No, from Shay's feedback, it's not giving me any difference, but let's just try it anyway. And I am at a loss. All right. Okay. Well, yeah, dang it. I'm saying the same thing, Shay. Anyway, if you're here for the first time, I apologize for the sound problems. I do hope that you are get something out of this in spite of that. And I also want to just mention that if you are with us, I want you to interact by leaving a question or a comment. I will reply to you. As I mentioned a minute ago, if you're watching live, share your name and location in the comment field. Other than that, I do ask you to leave a comment or question on any of the quotes that we're going to. And I'm pulling quotes from all three books, all three books. And so the quotes will be on the screen for you to look at. And the first quotes are going to be coming from the first little volume called Keys to Wisdom. And again, these are from the notebooks of Ernest Holmes, things that he wrote down that were salient from his public talks, classes, and Sunday services, and things like that. And he wrote these down into notebooks. The notebooks were scoured by Willis Kinnear, editor of the magazine, after his death, published these three little volumes. So these are what we have from the notebooks of Ernest Holmes. And the first quote I want to look at, because I think it's pertinent for today, is instead of looking on our problems as things difficult to solve, we should look upon every problem as but an added possibility, an added opportunity for self-expression. So we all, a lot of people I talk to these days feel like there's so much going on in the world, and they look at everything as a problem. My wife and I have this sort of saying that in our lives individually, things are going really well. We love how our life is, and we feel prosperous and abundant from our personal level, but there's this sort of bubble around us. And then there's the world out there with all the material stuff going on, and the things that we could very easily label as problems and things that seem to be beyond our ability to solve. But Ernest reminds us in this quote that we should look upon every problem as an added possibility, an added opportunity for self-expression. The question for us is looking at anything that's in our life, whether it's at the personal level or the world level out there, those bigger political and social issues, is to say how can we look at this problem as an opportunity? How can we look at this problem as an opportunity and a way for us to express ourselves and as a gift to us, self-expression? So I guess the question for you, whatever you're faced with in your life, what's an opportunity for self-expression for you? Okay. If that brings up any thoughts for you, drop them in the comment field. Also, related to that is this idea: there is a divine urge. This is another quote from his notebook. There's a divine urge or a gentle pressure within everyone It's a dynamic source seeking an outlet through all creation. And whenever we let it, there is an influx of it into our nature. Holmes wrote a lot about the divine urge. Spirit embedded itself into every individual. Everything in this universe has mind or God or spirit within it, and it's embedded with certain divine characteristics. One of those characteristics he called the divine urge, and that's an urge for you to express yourself in your creative abilities, your creative talents. You may have a talent to write, to speak, to work on cars, to work in a social, uh, teach others, to work in stores, take care of children, whatever your talents and abilities are, where you feel like you're really called to be forth and express yourself in that. That is that divine urge that Holmes was talking about. And each one of us has a divine urge within us to express. The very nature that I will come on here and do these programs with you is part of my divine urge to understand the teachings of science of mind and other things, and relate them together and share them is part of my divine urge, and I feel a call to do that. And so that is what he's talking about, and we all seek that outflow of it. We have something inflowing through us, Spirit, God, and it's seeking an outlet through it. So the question then becomes, what's your outflow? What is your divine urge? Again, if you've got a question about any of these quotes I'm sharing or any comments about them, I would love for you to drop a comment in the comment field. Let's go on to the next quote. Again, we're looking at the book Keys to Wisdom. This one says, mind is the only creative agency known to science, to philosophy, or to religion. Mind in its conscious state is synonymous with spirit. Mind in its subjective state, reacting creatively to the will or imagination of spirit, is law. The result is form. Now, the reason I pulled this quote out is to stress that when Ernest Holmes' philosophy is the science of mind, mind with a capital M. And a lot of people, when they first come to the philosophy, want to equate the scientific current popular thought about mind being consciousness within our heads with the same term that Ernest is using, and he's really not. He does go back and forth in terms of our use of the larger mind, but mind with a capital M, or in the science of mind, is relating to the fact that spirit, God, the thing itself, the one embedded in its creation, not only a divine urge, but it also embedded into it a sense of mind. What mind is, it equates to God. He says the mind in its conscious state is spirit or God, and mind in its subjective state, that is below the level of awareness, is the law or the power that acts upon our thoughts. And then the result of those two working together creates this temporary state of form in which we find ourselves, in which we're moving around and having our being. So everything ultimately is mind. And Holmes says that in plenty of his writings. The mind equates to God ultimately, but God in the conscious form is what spirit is. That's why sometimes you'll see in his teaching symbol at the top that it'll talk about conscious mind is and spirit are the same, and then the law or the subjective mind is the middle area of the teaching signal, and that's where it's acted upon the conscious thoughts. It's also the repository, by the way, of all prior thinking, so the collective consciousnesses and the consciousness of the planet is held in that middle area as well. It's also impacting us. And then a this form within, which is very temporary in its nature. So this is the key point or takeaway. So when you hear the word mind in science of mind, you've got to be flipping away from the idea of mind means something within me and my consciousness. Yes, that's your individual use of it, but mind is part of a field that you're within. So that is where we're going with that one. One more quote here from Keys to Wisdom. And I love this one because he says, "We all long for intimate relationships. We wish to feel that we are one with people. Yearning which every normal person has emanates from an unconscious spiritual perception that we are all one in life itself. Where there is no sense of separation from life, there will be no loneliness. There will be no loneliness." So we all all ache for a conscious relationship with others. We all want, to feel a sense of connection. Holmes is reminding us that we as spiritual beings are not isolated from everything else, and that the very nature within us is a desire to connect with others in relationship is a way of, reminding us that we are part of this oneness, that the very nature and essence of God is in us. We feel it through the desire to have relationships with others. So, again, I hope this is beneficial for you. Apologize for the sound quality again. Don't know why we're having that. Frustrating for me, but we're plowing through. Would encourage you to visit my website if you want to find out more about my videos and writings. You go to consciousbridge.com. My latest YouTube video will be found there. In fact, YouTube video posted this week, which filmed perfectly, uploaded to YouTube perfectly using the same setup. So it's sort of like an interesting dynamic dealing with this streaming system I'm using. In any case, what we're going to do is continue on. I encourage you to drop a comment in the comment field if you are finding that there's a quote that resonates with you or you'd have a interaction relative to you. So this is all about benefiting you. Let's go on to looking at another quote. Now we're going to shift gears and go into the second little book of the notebooks of Ernest Holmes. And this was the book published under the title New Horizons. New Horizons. And one of the quotes from New Horizons, the infinite, which is limitless, is also what we call the finite, which appears to be limited. But the finite that appears to be limited is merely the infinite expressing as whatever the particular thing is. That seems like a lot of mumbo jumbo when you first come to science mind, but one way I like to teach it to help people understand it is that we live in sort of a stratification universe. We live in this material world form, and a lot of times our attention, senses on the material world, and we think that's all there is, except we're having thoughts. In the back of us, we have this essence where we realize that we're also thinking beings, and our thoughts are in a non-manifest realm that exists above us. And then even higher, that is spirit. So you can sort of imagine it like a stratification, moving from the body or the physical world up into the non-physical world, mind or thoughts up to the higher level, spirit and oneness and divine, or the infinite, at the level of all. Everything in its vast oneness and its interconnectedness comes from the infinite. We also call it the absolute, and there are a lot of names for it. And whenever Ernest Holmes capitalizes a word, he's referencing the macrocosm of the divine and the all. Here you see the infinite, which is that non-material essence of divine oneness where everything is recognized and known in that oneness, is limitless. And also add it's timeless. It's outside of time. It's outside of form. There are no limits to it. But it's also what we call the finite. The finite is the material world where we think things are limited, that they are, in relationship to one another. So you think I'm Mark and you're you, and we're having this interaction here on this program this morning. Each of us have our finite limitations as an individual. And what he's saying in this quote is the infinite or the divine is limitless, but it's also includes the finite. So everything that we think is in separate and apart and in relationship to one another and appears to be limited is part of that infiniteness. The infinite encompasses the entire thing. That stratification that I was talking about a minute ago, from the world of form to the world of mind to the world of the spirit, it's all the infinite realm. It encapsulates the entire thing in a divine oneness. And so, um, you got me. Okay, great. I don't know what I got, but thank you. I'm glad we're getting some message out through this today, and I appreciate your feedback, Shelley. Keep keep the feedback up. And I invite everybody who's watching live, drop me your name, where you're from in the comment field. If you have a comment about any of these quotes, be sure to drop a comment in there. We'd love to hear from you. And we're just going to keep moving here forward. what we can get from these. Still looking at the second book, New Horizons, here's another quote from it. "There is no such thing as the human mind and the divine mind. There are only disparate aspects of the same mind." Sort of hit on this on some of the prior quotes we looked at, but if everything is mind, we are using our minds, our thinking and our creative abilities, as well as subjective or subconscious minds that we have access to. We are using the same mind as God or the infinite used in creating the universe. So when we talk about a divine mind that encapsulates everything that exists everywhere in spirit, mind, and body, everything that has divine mind or consciousness within it, that we're using that field of consciousness when we use our thinking. That's what Holmes is telling us here. And there's no different thing. It's not my mind and God's mind. They're one mind. It's like we're tapping into a divine flow or a divine field that we have access to. We can use the power of thinking is using that one field of divine. Another quote from New Horizons. Very deep in us is the source, the reason, and the possibility of all things. But we need to listen simply, sincerely, almost impersonally, and never confuse the little we know with the much that might be known. Mm, very deep in us is the source. God is in us. And within that carries the possibility of all things, possibility to learn and grow and evolve, return in awareness to our oneness. But we need to simply listen to that source within us, almost impersonally. Never confuse that little we know with the much that might be known. We think we know a lot. In fact, one of the greatest things I like to talk about is the more I know, the more I realize I don't know. I went through this stage when I was younger saying I was hungry for knowledge. Then as I gained some knowledge, I got sort of egotistical and thought, I know a lot. And I think the more that I learn, the more I recognize how much out there in this vast array of this massive universe is beyond me and beyond my. And so one is to be humble in the face of the infinite knowledge, but the other is to listen. Listen to the still small voices of intuition as it moves through you. The spirit, we have access to the vast knowledge. We have that access to the ways in which spirit can show up and provide us this infinite knowledge, and we can do it, and we must listen simply and sincerely, it tells us, and never confuse the little that we know with the vast that's out there, because there is so much more that we can know. So the ego mind is what makes horrible decisions then. That's this is an interesting question, Shay. One of the things that I know my wife and I have a lot of conversations about is the ego. I've been doing some readings on ego, and there's different people who have different takes on what ego means. I don't think Holmes saw the ego as something to be, transcended or deleted. In fact, that's my take on it as well. What is the ego? What is the ego? Um, it depends. In psychology terms, ego is that which allows us to effectively interact with material life or our individual lives as we're moving around as these human beings. We have to have something that sort of it puts a parameter about us, and it gives us a persona or a limitation to ourselves and helps us to navigate. So we need a healthy ego. But the other part that comes with that is that there's spiritual teachings, especially a lot of teachings by certain Buddhist teachers who say the ego is something to be transcended and killed or deleted. My take is it's not an either or. The ego can overwhelm us. We can get and we exhibit and see people in our lives who are very egotistical and to a degree of narcissism, where they're so attached to their ego and to their sense of their individual human selves that they act out of that separation. And so ego minds do need to be transcended. And yes, they can make decisions that are not in the best interest of our ultimate evolution and growth as a human being. Each one of us is on a path remembering the truth of our oneness of everything. And that includes the ability to transcend the ego, to transcend its limitations. But we can't necessarily just kill the ego and not have any ego at all.
In fact, I don't think I've ever seen anybody that's done that. Even teachers who like to say and tout that, "I'm beyond ego," they the very nature that they're making statements back to us about transcending ego sometimes represents ego to me. And so I think there's a healthy way in which we can recognize where the ego tends to push us into selfishness and separation. And we have to turn away from those aspects of the ego, but use the ego to be an effective tool for navigating the physical world. There's that Buddhist saying, before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. There's a realization when you understand that statement that when we become enlightened and recognize everything as one, then we tend to want to uh, say, "Well, I'm gonna transcend this dimension and not come back to it." The fact is that as long as you are a spiritual being still having that human experience, you've got to navigate as a human around the world of form, which requires an ego. So when you come back after enlightenment, you still have to chop wood and carry water, i.e., work in the world of form as you in your humanness. And so the ego is what allows you to effectively navigate through and with other people and things in the world of relationship. Okay. And you're telling me what I'm getting at is if our mind is one with God, then why do we screw up so much? There's other quotes by Holmes that talk about the fact that it's because we forget our oneness, we forget our truth. It's one of these things where I tend to look at it like a stock market chart where if we're truly spiritually evolving, we're continuously moving upward, but that doesn't mean we have little down dips where we forget. So our spiritual evolution and returning to oneness is an ever upward spiral. That's how Holmes wrote about it. And so another way of looking at it is when you move up a spiral to a higher spot, sometimes you loop back over the same spot that you had trouble with, but at a higher level. And sometimes you can get mired in that and it can kick you back down the spiral again, spiraling upward towards returning to oneness and truth. But sometimes we bump into little things like unhealed aspects of our shadow, psychological issues that we have never healed, and they come up for us and they kick us in the butt, and we, get wrapped up in them, and then we make mistakes, so that the sense of being one and enlightened is an ever upward arc, but it doesn't necessarily mean we don't slide back and cross over the same spot at higher level and still get sort of stuck in some aspect of that makes us make wrong choices. So, yes, our mind is still part of mind, but we still have the limitation to knowing the full mind. We as humans, in our human experience, will never truly know the divine in its totality. We can never truly know oneness. We can learn it and understand it more and more and more. And the more we understand it, the less we realize we understand about it. So that's part of the bargain. But at the same time, we never understand everything so truly. It's like a lot of people ask these days about all the challenges on the planet. And I look at it that there's a spiritual uh, pendulum that swings back and forth. We are going around with a pendulum, and then which it ends up being a spiral. Sometimes we come back over aspects of the divine and challenges at the same spot, like I've been mentioning. But that doesn't mean that we don't, in this world, swing as a collective and too far, towards sometimes we swing into recognizing and sensing oneness and doing the best for everybody, and sometimes we swing into uh, wars and divisiveness and seeing each other in separation and fear. And sometimes it appears that maybe we're swinging that way. And so sometimes we have to just hold the high watch for the world and make positive decisions for oneness, both individually and collectively for the world. So why do we screw up? Short answer, that's sort of where I'm around that, is that it's our limited understanding of what's going on. Our limited, we can understand intellectually that our mind is one with God, but when we emotionally in our limited thinking don't feel that in every circumstance, sometimes we come back and swing into choices that are in limitation and fear and doubt. Yeah, thanks. Good question. Um, so, and we were looking at that quote. We listened, and let's move on. We're still looking at New Horizon. I'm going to flip in a minute to the final book. If someone speaks to us in Greek, we may not know what he's talking about because we do not understand Greek. But if someone laughs or cries, we can laugh or cry with them because we're understanding laughing and crying. Feeling is a universal language. I love this quote because what Holmes is reminding us is that even though we may speak different languages, there's aspects of things that continuously remind us of our interconnectedness and the very nature that all humans feel love, feel sadness, feel sorrow, go through stages of grief with loss. There are all these things that bind us in so many ways. My first book I wrote about 12, 13 years ago, called Be Yourself, Evolving to Oneness, Be Yourself. One of the chapters in there is really about focusing on our commonalities, finding ways we're more alike than we are different. So much time we spend focusing on differences. We can talk about all the algorithms social media does, which seeks to put us in separate camps. What we need to do is to break down and have an algorithm that finds our commonalities and links us together. And so the question for us is if the tech companies are not gonna bring us together, they're not gonna produce an algorithm that brings us into oneness, then we've got to find ways ourselves. And that means by putting out positive words and messages, it means seeing the good in everybody, it means not focusing on our differences and finding ways to find a commonality. And one of those is the feelings and emotions that we all have. The very nature that no matter what we may come down on the side of various world conflicts that are going on out there, the very nature that bombs get dropped and people are hurt and killed and going through stages of horror and grief opens our hearts. And the fact that we all have hearts that get broken open by tragedies that occur on this planet. You can remember when if you were around at 9/11, when all of the tragedies that hit the US that day, it brought the country together in a way that was unlike anything we had been experiencing recently. And sometimes the collective experience of some sadness, sorrow, or happiness can bring us together in a sense of unity. Emotions, emotions can do that. And, moving on, and now we're going to move to Gateway to Life, the third of the notebooks of Ernest Holmes that were published. The quotes from this one, this is currently not on the archives website, but like I said, we're going to try to bring this book out in some form or fashion to you in the future. In this book, Holmes, we got just touch on. I got to stress the fact that I'm pulling maybe 4 or 5 quotes from each of these little books that have probably several hundred quotes in them. So there's much more. You're getting like the briefest of taste of the books. I hope you're enjoying them. Meditation is a vehicle for the realization of oneness with our source, the Father. Only as we overcome, annihilate that sense of separation can we merge into perfection. As air rushes into a vacuum. Demonstration is no miracle, but it's a divine law asserting itself. It is not obstructed, if not obstructed. So meditation is reminding us that the power of meditation and taking time each day to step out of the divisiveness of the world and into the inner world where we can sense that inner connection is valuable to reorient our thinking and awareness and attention towards the fact that we are all one, our source. So we need to do some spiritual practice all the time to take us in that direction so we can tap into the divine oneness. And that when we do that, that sense just rushes into us with perfection. And then it reminds us that all of this world and its manifest stuff isn't a miracle, but it's simply the divine law exerting itself through the power of conscious thought by every individual and individual. So meditate, folks. Keep Here's another quote from the book. There's no need to seek unity with God and the universe. We already have it. It's something we must become aware of. We talk about being on the spiritual path. We talk about trying to find God. God's already in us. We got to just look inside. So there's a lot of people who say, and a lot of spiritual teachers, when we talk about seeking something out there, remind us that it's not a seeking out there, it's a turning inward and recognizing that what we're already seeking, we already have within us. In fact, that which within us is that which we're seeking. The divine urge in us that calls us to reunite with God is God calling us to reunite with itself. And so all of the power that that's pushing you along, the urges that are pushing you along are a reminder of the divinity within you. And so if we can stop and just recognize that the creative urge is part of God, that the push for the to move along the spiritual path, that God, there's nothing we need to seek. Everything is in us all the time, all the time. We just need to reorient it where we're looking and how we look at things. Yes. Get to another quote. We do not have to save the world. The world is not lost, just confused. We do not have to bring something back to God which never left him. Get rid of everything which contradicts reality. Our world will be saved. There's all this talk, and sometimes people, and I've done this in the past, is we gotta save the world, save the world. Well, the world, and especially the planet, when we talk about the planet's gonna do well. We may be messing up the planet with all our human activities, and we may continue to do that, but the planet itself will heal. The planet was here before we came. The planet will be here after we came. It's all we're doing is affecting its ability to, in the moment, successfully hold physical life that looks like us. So we don't have to save the world in that regard. There's also the world of humanity and consciousness, which is often how that phrase is. And we don't have to save the world consciously either. The world is not lost, it's just confused. So when we see all the craziness going on in the world, the thoughts in people's minds on the planet, what we see is confusion. When we see political leaders who wanna divide us rather than unite us, we're seeing confusion. When we're seeing people who choose war over peace, we're seeing confusion. When we see people who are starving, yet there's food nearby that they could be having, all we're seeing is distribution stalled by the confusion of small-minded people who don't recognize the unity. Around us every day, we see confusion in the minds of people. What's ours to do in that is to realize we don't have to fix or heal the world. We don't have to bring anybody back to God. God is in everybody on this planet. God never left anybody, even the ones making the wrong choices or the ones that we see that are suffering. What we have to do is to remind ourselves and ask ourselves what is ours to do in the world of form and in our thoughts to bring about the world that we want and to get rid of everything that contradicts reality. Our world will be saved. It will be saved through us, through humans making wise choices for the one, wise choices that benefit the all. We will choose love over hate. We will choose peace over war. We will choose prosperity over limitation. Those choices need to be made by each and every one of us who are studying this philosophy, listening to programs like this, and taking ourselves into the world and through our own role as a teacher. And yes, we're all teachers. We teach others by the example that we are, by the words that we use, by the choices that we make. We're all teachers. So how are you teaching those around you in your sphere of influence? You have a role to play in creating the world that we want. And we don't have to save the world. All we have to do is show up with the oneness flowing through our hearts in a beautiful divine unity. Another quote from this book, again, we're looking at Gateway to Life. No two people live in the same room. Each to himself has the reality of the world he experiences. Each lives in a world of his own creating. Think about that. No people live in the same room. I mean, it becomes more evident when we see people who get their news and stuff from different sources, that we're not united in a kind of common culture in a lot of ways these days. But we also see it just even in the smallest of our lives and working with other people. And in fact, we have to look at it that we're sitting in a room with other people. The people who are sitting in the room with us are creating their own world in their own minds. There's spiritual practices, by the way, that allow us to taste this. Now, I'll just touch this very briefly here in the final minute, is that meditation can open us to the unity of the universe of spirit moving through us. There's also a process where we can look out at our lives and recognize that everything around us in this world of form is a creation or projection of our consciousness. That even though it feels and senses like it's real, it's really something that is like a projection on Plato's cave that we're seeing, and it's something out there that we're observing. but it's also is the key thing, because that's where we get it. Let me stop and say that's where we get into witness consciousness and recognize that within us is a witness that is witnessing the projection inside of us. So all of the people that are around us, they're also projecting out their own world, and there's intersections of those projections where we've had common agreements that certain things are the way they are. We agree on those, and so that's the power of the collective unconscious. But we're projecting. We have this witness in us, which is projecting. But then we also, at a certain point, have to recognize that that world out there is inside us. And when we see other people projecting, this world that they're projecting is inside them. So without outside of you, if you look around your room right now, you're projecting the world out there, and that world is inside of you. That world is inside of you. The Toltec teaching talk about this today. Talk about this too. Don Miguel Ruiz, love his work. We live in our own reality. Yeah, we do. And this reality is of our own creation. And yes, we're co-creating an agreement with others through the collective consciousness. We can turn our consciousness away and flip from the unconscious scripts of the past. You've seen this in historical times where we have taken, the world collectively said that the world was the center of the universe until the world told itself a new story and said that the Earth is just going around the sun and we're in a galaxy, etc. So we changed our orientation and beliefs when we get enough people to get and see and understand information of truth. Right now, we're in a very much mindset of materialism. Everything is physical matter. And there's an opening quote. I'm reading the new Dan Brown book, Secret of Secrets. He's the one who wrote the Da Vinci Code. And in his latest book, The Secret of Secrets, he builds on stuff in noetic sciences. But at the very beginning, there's a quote, which I'm going to paraphrase, and the quote is from Tesla. And Nicholas Tesla made the statement that science is, when science turns away from focusing only on materialism and focuses on the non-material, it's going to make leaps and bounds and growths in its oneness. And that's a lot of what I teach too, is that we focus and look at this material world. And so many people define that as the only reality. And when we can turn to those upper levels, the world of mind and spirit, I was talking about the stratification earlier, when science can turn its focus upwards into the non-material aspects of reality, and we're going to see a vast expansion in how humanity sees the world and understand this reality that we're living in. But right now, we're going through a time period, a paradigm shift, where we're letting go of, not easily, the old paradigm of materialism. Everything is physical matter. There's little chinks in that. Things are appearing on. This next week, there will be a video coming out on my YouTube channel, by the way, that I've already filmed and loaded up. It come out on Wednesday. It's about the UFOs and tying UFOs to spirituality. I encourage you to check it out this week. But it's the very nature that UFOs are existing to break down this chink of materialism. More on that. I don't want to get into UFOs. Okay, that's the end of the quotes, and right on schedule. So I hope that this has been beneficial. There's, uh, I really, really, really love doing these programs. I love the fact that we can share some ideas. I apologize that this is the third one. We've had some technical issues, and I also want to remind you that if you want to get the first two volumes of the US notebooks, they're available at the Science of Mind archives. There's the website on the screen. I just want to remind you that this program comes to you from the New Thought Media Network, and it continues through your donations. Please go to their website, ntmedia.org, and click on the button donate to support the network to ensure that it continues to bring program for you. I guess Robert and I are going to have to get together again and try to figure out what is going on. Maybe StreamYard into the conversation. Right? I want to thank you all for your great comments today. Appreciate your comments and feedback, Shay, especially. Thank you so much for doing that. Hope this has been beneficial for you, and that you join us next time as we move through, this experience of studying science of mind. I didn't talk about it at the outset. Beginning weeks of the year, we go through the science of the textbook, and late in the year, we're going through alternate resources. We go through alternate resources of things, And like I said, we've been going through the notebooks of Ernest Holmes, and thank you, Shay, for the comments, your participation today as he Mark navigates through and brings this forth. Everybody take care. Till next time.